Good evening. It is 5 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for attending the Consortium for Educational Equities Community Engagement Subcommittee meeting. Tonight's April 15th. I do know that we have a lot of folks online, so we'll go over what our meeting norms are for that, but I did want to just say welcome and thank you for being here. Councilwoman Cabrera, is there anything that you'd like to add? I guess I should have introduced myself. My name is Stephanie Ingram. I'm the president of the Delaware State Education Association, and I'm one of the co-chairs of this community engagement subcommittee meeting. So during this meeting, we are going to work to share updates and recap the subcommittee retreat that we held in March. We're going to work to discuss developing the broader community engagement strategy and begin planning for the community town halls that we hope to hold in May. Here are a few important reminders for our meeting tonight. Since we know this is a hybrid meeting, we ask that you announce your name before speaking so everyone can know who it is. Please mute yourself when you are not speaking. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and it's going to be posted to the public. Subcommittee members at this time, if you could please type your name in chat for roll call. So we'll give you a few seconds to make sure if you're a subcommittee member, please put your name in the chat. And as a reminder, educational leaders and students from the University of Delaware's Institute for Public Administration and Delaware State University are here as staff members to provide support for the Redding Consortium. So again, if you are part of the subcommittee, if you could please put your name in the chat, we're taking roll call. Thank you very much.
Okay, so far we have Superintendent Jeff Menzer, Dr. Meredith Griffin from the Delaware State Board of Education, Dr. Bill O'Hanlon for Dr. Lisa Lawson for the Brandywine School District, and Jim Simmons for designee for Mayor Kearney. Okay. And Councilwoman Maria Cabrera, co-chair for the Redding Community Engagement Subcommittee.
Does that give us a quorum for making decisions?
Let me see one. And Dr. Hugh Brumall for Superintendent Darrell Green for Red Clay.
Okay.
And I believe we have quorum for.
We do? Good. Okay,
yeah.
Great.
Good afternoon, all.
We also have Mr. Ray Rhodes, Ray Rhodes from Eastside Charter as well.
Okay, good. Good evening. All right, so at this time, excuse me, I'm looking for a motion to approve the meeting minutes as presented for February 3rd, 2025.
So moved, Madam Chair. Second.
So it's been motioned by Mr. Rhodes and seconded by Mr. Brumall. Would you like to speak to your motion, Mr. Rhodes?
No questions. Call for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Brumall. Thank you. Any discussion or edits? Seeing none, the motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any objection? Say no. All right. Looks like the motion carries. Thank you so much. At this time, Councilwoman Cabrera and I are going to present a few updates from some of the things that we have been doing at our last subcommittee meeting. So during our last subcommittee meeting, again, which was held on February 3rd, we had a great planning session where we worked to review the stipulations assigned to our subcommittee. The operational impacts and fiscal impact subcommittee also hosted their meetings in February and discussed data needs for their subcommittees related to redistricting planning. Following these subcommittee meetings, Redding staff have updated the data requests tracker to include questions asked by all the subcommittees. The data questions you can see are sorted into tiers to help with prioritization. Tier 1 includes data questions the subcommittee can answer, and Tier 2 includes data questions that we need more information to answer. As co-chairs, we are currently in the process of sending out official appointments to educators to serve on the Educator Advisory Panel. As stated in the approved interim plan, excuse me, the Community Engagement Subcommittee will work with DSCA and other educational groups on the creation of an Educator Advisory Panel to ensure educator needs and voices are involved and reflected in the final plan. Excuse me. We plan to convene smaller leadership meetings with DSCA and other educator groups to determine the best approach for educator engagement and support. For the selection process, current members were recommended by their local presidents or their DSCA UNISERV directors. Appointed members will include representatives from the 4 traditional districts you can see on the screen. We're planning to host the first meeting with the Educator Advisory Panel in May. Redding leadership will also host a meeting with charter school leaders to get their feedback and include their voices and perspective in the planning discussions. At this time, we'd like to recap a little bit of what happened at the subcommittee meetings, or excuse me, the subcommittee retreat. The retreat focused on discussing a unified and positive vision for this work, understanding the role of the consortium, AIR, the subcommittees, and the process of developing the redistricting plan, and having a better understanding of potential redistricting options to inform the path forward. During the retreat, the 3 redistricting subcommittees worked together on deeper planning and alignment. The subcommittees discussed shared vision and goals for this important work to improve the education in the city of Wilmington and northern Newcastle County. The American Institute for Research, AIR, is the state-approved vendor that is conducting the social drivers of health and education landscape analysis on behalf of the Redding Consortium. The AIR team presented an in-person update on the first of 3 phased reports for the landscape analysis. The landscape analysis will help identify the broader factors outside of school that impact the lived conditions of the pre-K to 12 students in the city of Wilmington and northern Newcastle County. The goal of the landscape analysis is to help inform the work of the redistricting subcommittees. The AIR team leading this work will collaborate with the consortium, its subcommittees, and members of the community throughout this process. Phase report 1, March 2025, included key insights and findings from the discovery phase of the landscape analysis. Phase 2 in June of 2025 will include preliminary results from the neighborhood and school level analyses, interviews, and focus groups. The research work for phase 2 will have participant interviews and focus groups to gather additional insights and findings to help inform this work. The AIR team is currently working with the Center for Structural Equity based in Wilmington to finalize the details of work on a youth-led, community-based insights component of the landscape analysis. Finding number 1. In order to provide stronger rationale for redistricting decisions and more impactful supports for students and families, the Redding Consortium subcommittees require A, more precise understanding of how students and families experience different combinations of social drivers in different neighborhoods across Wilmington, and B, stronger evidence for how those social drivers affect health and educational opportunities. Finding number 2. The relationship between high student mobility and access to affordable housing surfaced as a priority issue across most interviews. Providing a stronger rationale for redistricting decisions and a more impactful supports for students requires a more precise understanding of the scale and root causes of student mobility and the effect on health and education. And finding 3, community centers have historically served as vital spaces for community connections and after-school enrichment and academic supports. But due to changing civic priorities and funding availability, many have closed or are struggling to stay open. Providing a stronger rationale for redistricting decisions and more impactful supports for students requires a more precise understanding of the broader landscape, out of school and after-school enrichment and supports, and how varying access affects student experiences and outcomes. Finding number 4. Extensive investments were made across a wide variety of organizations in Wilmington to address social drivers. Again, providing stronger rationale requires a more precise understanding of current state of collaboration between organizations and with districts, how the current district configuration affects their ability to provide wraparound services. Finding number 5, there's a notable and long-standing history of participatory action research, PAR, projects in Wilmington, along with multiple organizations and academics that actively support PAR and youth-led PAR work. The landscape analysis will benefit from a youth-led, community-based insights component, and AIR should partner with local community-based organization and a team of student researchers to provide unique insights into how the Redding Consortium can provide a stronger rationale for the decisions in redistricting and provide more impactful supports for students and their families. Should we pause and see if anyone has any questions? Does anyone have any questions on those information that's been provided so far? It's a lot. All right, we'll move on to the next slide. So phase 2 of the data collection and analysis work will be began in March 2025 and will take place until June of 2025. As part of the collaborative work with the AIR team, Councilwoman Cabrera and I, along with the WLC Council Chair, Helen Anderson, an ex officio member of the subcommittee, shared input with AIR on sampling and recruitment for the interviews and focus groups for phase 2. The AIR team will conduct interviews and focus groups of up to 150 frontline staff, including teachers, community-based organizations and staff, parents, guardians, caregivers, community members, and students. The main focus for phase number 2 is what are the lived experiences of families as they try and to access the social drivers of health and education. The Center for Structural Equity, led by Daryl Wolfe-Chambers and Dr. Yasir Payne, is a community-based nonprofit organization in Wilmington. Their current work with the Center for Structural Equity builds upon their previous work with the People's Report, a groundbreaking participatory action research project in North Wilmington, in the city of Wilmington. Mr. Chambers and Dr. Payne are currently working with the AIR team to finalize the details of a youth-led, community-based insights component for the consortium social drivers of health and education landscape analysis. This additional component of the landscape analysis can provide unique insights into how the consortium can provide a stronger rationale for redistricting decisions and more impactful supports for students and their families. Phase 3, August 2025, will contain the finalized analyses from the neighborhood and school level, stakeholder interviews, analyses, and focus groups. It will also include a preliminary progress update on the youth-led community-based data collection efforts. The final report and recommendations from September to October of 2025 will include final analyses of all the above data sources and community feedback and insights from the co-interpretation events. AIR plans to lead sessions on co-interpreting the findings and identifying shared priorities and opportunities for action. The co-interpretation involves mixed constituent groups, reviewing findings and offering insights. There was an activity at the retreat to see what redistricting options were prioritized by the 3 subcommittees, and there was some consensus around several options that could work. However, we want to hear from people at town halls about what they want, especially the city of Wilmington residents, and to see if issues and bright spots are similar or different from the ideas that came up at the retreat.
I want to open it up for any questions.
Sure. Does anyone have any questions about the retreat or any of the activities that took place? Okay, seeing none, I guess we can move on.
I'm trying to raise my hand. I can't get it to work. I think I want to ask a question around those people who were at the retreat. What was I don't know that we were on the same page on what we're calling a metropolitan district. And so I don't know if anybody else has any clarity, because when in our group, I think it was still keeping Brandywine and Red Clay separate and then having this metropolitan district? Or is it combining Brandywine and Red Clay into this metropolitan district? I don't know that that was ever cleared up, and I thought that that was a contention at the retreat.
Thank you for bringing up the question. As I try to go back through my notes to find out what we talked about, I am not quite sure.
Hi, Stephanie. I can jump in if it's okay.
Please.
Hello, everyone. I'm here, Maria Cabrera. Good to be with you. There was no final decision made. The groups broke out. We had different discussions. There were different models that were presented. I believe there was 9 models that were presented, and people were asked their thoughts on them. As a process of elimination, some models were kind of, people weren't feeling them, so they were kind of eliminated, and there might be 3 or 4 options, but nothing has been decided. There is a follow-up retreat that we have another meeting coming up, but it was put out there on how this would look if we were to do these 2 school districts, whether Colonial will be part of it. Would it just be, I think everybody pretty much agreed that Christina should be on there separately, that we would keep them across the river on the other side and focus on Red Clay, Brandywine, and Colonial. And how would that look? Would it be just the City of Wilmington School District, which most people felt that might not be the best route to go, but no final decisions were made? Or would it be Red Clay, Colonial, Brandywine? Would it be Brandywine and Red Clay, or would we call it a metropolitan school district? So there was nothing finalized. It is still for discussion, for review, for research, but that was the very last exercise that we did at the end, and got the feedback. I can tell you that the feedback was leaning towards Red Clay, Brandywine, or metropolitan, something along those lines. But again, nothing has been finalized.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I knew that nothing had been finalized. I think my question, and maybe I didn't state it clearly enough, was that I don't know that we finalized what the definition of a metropolitan district is. Is it something separate from Brandywine and Red Clay, i.e. a different version from a Wilmington school district, or is it combining Brandywine and Red Clay and then calling that a metropolitan district, i.e., if you remember, Lisa Lawson made a joke that I wouldn't mind working for Durrell. So I don't know that we ever clarified. So I think when we got it down to these 4 options, there's still we need some clarity on what a metropolitan district is, if it's going to be one of the options as we explain it to folks. And I don't know that that's clear.
You are correct.
Thank you.
We did not finalize that.
I'm sorry, thank you for the question. Jim, well, I do have the notes from the retreat, and the Metropolitan Wilmington District would serve students within the geographical boundaries of the City of Wilmington and the surrounding suburbs. The option would combine the City of Wilmington and the surrounding districts. So we would be considering the City of Wilmington plus the Red Clay Consolidated School District, or plus the Brandywine School District. So as you stated, we weren't really sure about the boundaries, but our metropolitan district would be the Wilmington District plus Red Clay, or the Wilmington District plus Brandywine, which that we did not settle at the end of the retreat.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you again for the question.
Looks like there's a raised hand by Dr. Griffin.
Dr. Griffin?
Thank you. If it's possible, could you then explain what the Northern Newcastle County Consolidated School District was discussed? I was not at the retreat.
Sure, I'd be happy to do so.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The Northern Newcastle County Consolidated School District would create a single school district serving Northern Newcastle County, comprising the City of Wilmington, the City of Newark, and all suburbs north and west of the City of Wilmington. It would not include the Appoquinimink School District unless otherwise proposed. Does that serve to clarify?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Are there any other questions around the discussions about the options for the school districts? Okay. If not,
I just wanted to say, Stephanie, it's like a, excuse me, as a point of clarity, you know, these were the options that were discussed as for further discussion at the retreat, but these aren't, you know, the definite options that, you know, are being considered. We're still, and that's the focus of the town halls that we're gonna have to get more community input and hear, you know, what their values and insights are, you know, on any potential redistricting options that would be elevated to the table. So I just wanted to put that out there. We're still in the process of trying to get community input, and that's the focus of what we're going to be discussing tonight is planning for the May town hall meetings. So I just wanted to put that out there, that these were kind of the options that were put forth for further discussion, but we're going to be still in the process of getting input and feedback from the community as well.
thank you again for highlighting that point, that these are not final decisions and that we're still looking for input. This time, I'm going to turn it over to Councilwoman Cabrera to talk about the vision for the community engagement work moving forward.
Yes, thank you very much. And as was just mentioned, it's really important that we have feedback, that we have community engagement. So one of the things that we are definitely planning to do is to get out there in the community, to do town hall meetings, to hear back from all the parties of parents, community leaders, educators, and folks like that. And let's see, are we moving to the next slide? Okay, so there were some recommendations made for amending or eliminating referendums from non-capital issues to ensure that decision makers can focus on their capacity on student and educator needs. As we know, sometimes referendums will keep our children from getting what they need. We discussed also utilizing the tax pool from the Newcastle County Tax District for, you know, resourcing those transitional activities. There was recommendations that were made, reassessment, funding reform, the impact that redistricting would have, and the continued necessity of the existing tax district. If you can look at school choice too, recommendations for changes to enhance equity in policies and practices associated with student assignment and school choice. We talked about the charter schools, recommendation for changes in policies and practices, improving the coordination and the collaboration among districts, especially, you know, the charter schools that are serving the city of Wilmington and the northern school districts, as well with the authorizations of the charter schools. Can we go on to the next slide? Okay, we, you know, talked about some ideas, you know, going above and beyond the current allocations, including funding opportunities. Delaware should ensure sustainable investments in these areas. You know, the high quality learning expansion, premium pay policies and highest needs schools, support for the development of specialized programs at the Wilmington elementary schools, moving to the new receiving school district, whatever those decisions are when they're made, enhance wraparound services. We know that our children definitely, what the Wilmington Learning Collaborative is looking at is what additional needs some of the children in Wilmington would require because of the situations that they're in that may not affect the children that are outside of the city of Wilmington. And then the social drivers of health and education, landscape analysis for the city of Wilmington, northern Newcastle County, and Delaware. And this is being conducted by AIR, which is the consulting group that's working with us. And keep going. Are there any questions on any of these that we have brought up? Any questions or discussions around this?
I was gonna say, Councilwoman Cabrera, I put in the chat, so the Redding Consortium, they approved an interim plan for like a framework for the redistricting planning. So in the process of the development of a final plan, these are some of the ideas that are were considered in addition to some of the redistricting planning work that we're currently doing. So the full consortium would have to, of course, review and vet these ideas, and then we would put forth those with a final plan. So this work would be done in parallel with the current redistricting effort, but we thought that in addition to the work that's being done in redistricting, some of these big ideas about, state investment or revenue reform or charter and choice reform could be helpful to help support some of the work that we're doing with redistricting as well. I just wanted to clarify that too.
Yes, thank you, thank you. The most important thing we want to make sure that the message that we get as a committee and anybody in the public that is participating is that we are gathering feedback from the stakeholders about the potential redistricting options that we put forth for discussion. We're compiling and analyzing this community feedback to share with the full consortium. So it's just important that we have that community engagement. And what are the most effective ways to engage these community groups? Do we go forward with focus groups, obviously town halls, but we want to get you more into the nitty gritty to really hear from the folks that are involved, and what kind of feedback do we want to collect from the community, and how will the stakeholders be informed? We know that not every parent or stakeholders are as engaged as we would like them to be. How can we build a broader coalition of support for the consortium's redistricting efforts? And what are the metrics for engagement? So these are all the questions that we have that we want to get feedback on, and we don't want to be the ones just making these decisions. We want to hear from the community. So, we also, put out there, how will our subcommittee work with and support the educator advisory panel to ensure that educators' needs are also reflected in the final plan? Any questions surrounding what we just discussed?
I have a question, Maria.
Yes.
Ray Rhodes.
Hi.
Of course, the town hall meetings are important themselves. How are we going about scheduling so that we make sure that we get across every spectrum? Because oftentimes people can't make them to certain locations. So how are we navigating through that?
Well, I do believe that if we're going to have town halls, we want to get into the different districts, into the different neighborhoods. I mean, most recently, we saw that Mayor Carney has been going out into the city of Wilmington and doing town halls. As an example, he did one recently at the library, which included the 3rd and the 4th district. He had done one on the west side, which included the 5th and the 6th district. And there's some other ideas that we have about how to connect that. So we kind of want to make sure that we go to the neighborhoods where the people live, where the children are enrolled, take it to them, because we want as much accessibility as possible. Obviously, we will use online opportunities for people to get on. And I have always found, and Dr. Griffin can attest to this, that going through the churches, getting the pastors involved, getting those community leaders, folks that people listen to, obviously our elected leaders, no different than what we do when we're trying to get information out into the community, so that we really can get a good positive feedback from the folks, from the people that are going to be affected. We want as many parents to have a voice in these decisions as possible. So that's for us to do, is the community engagement, to really get out there and do the work. And I know you will be a vital part of that, Mr. Rhodes.
Yes.
Do we want to go to the next section, Ms. Stephanie?
Sure. So we're going to talk about community engagement strategy. We're going to do a full group discussion tonight. We had talked about breaking up into small groups, but we're changing it a little bit. So to Mr. Rhodes' question, we're going to be working to determine how we're going to engage with the impacted communities through focus groups and town halls, to educate them and to hear from them about the redistricting planning process, including how we're going to gather feedback from the stakeholders about the potential redistricting options, and then to think about how we're going to share the community feedback with the full consortium. So tonight we have some guiding questions for our focus group, or excuse me, for our group discussion. I apologize. So what does community engagement for the redistricting planning process look like with the impacted communities in the city of Wilmington and the surrounding suburbs? And what do you consider to be the most effective ways to engage these communities? We also are going to be thinking about what type of feedback do we plan to collect from the community? How will these potentially interested persons be informed about the meetings that we're having and how they can give feedback? how can we work to build a broad coalition of support for these efforts? Like Councilwoman Cabrera said, what would be the metrics for our engagement, and how will the subcommittee work with the educator advisory planner to ensure the educators' needs are reflected in the final plan? So we're just gonna leave this up on the screen and just ask for folks to, who are part of the subcommittee, to unmute yourself and to really give us ideas about how we should think about planning to collect feedback from the stakeholders and potentially inform folks, invested people, and what are we looking to gather from them? What information do we need from these communities?
This is Jeff Menzer. I'll just throw out one random thought, not a question. But if you're going to be sharing, I think if we're going to be sharing redistricting plans, we probably should have a clear idea what those plans are ourselves and like who they impact, what they look like. And I would think the most important thing is to ask them how they might think it will impact their day-to-day existence within the school environment that they're currently in. Like, cause that's what they know, right? They know wherever their child's in school now. So like, I think we would have to, there would have to be some understanding of what's this change mean for them. Cause even the four that were on the screen just before, the room wasn't clear on it. Just imagine trying to explain that to someone who's just coming new to the table and has no clue what we're talking about. I think that you're going to have to figure out a way to distill that information to have a layman's conversation around what this change would mean, but also understand what do they want to change about their experience at their child's current school. Just not easy to do, but just, I think that we got to be able to talk the same level of the environment. Otherwise we're going to be talking way over their heads, because in sometimes cases, and even in this room, the talk is over our heads. Like it kind of rolls right over us. So I just put that out there.
That's a good point. So the two big takeaways I have from what you just said is, what does change mean as far as the daily experience of school, and what changes is the community looking for? That's the two takeaways from what you said. Thank you.
Thank
And
you for that.
go ahead.
Yeah, another point is, of course, some of the basic questions, you're talking layman's, when you get engage some stakeholders, the number one question they're going to ask is, why are we doing this? And we need to have a collective voice on why we're doing it, so that if they talk to me one day and Dr. Griffin the next, they're going to get the same answer. So we have to have a collective effort and understanding on why we're doing it, what's the importance of it, so that when we explain it, they're not left more confused than when they ask the question. So we have to come up with the why and how this is going to impact for the better Delaware education.
Thank you. So I heard you talking again about the idea that Dr. Mentor talked about, putting the information into easier terms for everyone to understand, not just the subcommittee, but the folks outside, and also to provide an answer about why we're doing this and the importance of the redistricting efforts.
Correct.
If I can just follow up on both of those, this is Meredith Griffin. The consortium has presented to the state board 2 or 3 times, and in at least 2 of those, the interim plan is what was presented to the state board. My question would be around, one, is that the starting point for these community town halls? And if not, what, to Dr. Menzer's point, what are we actually going to be presenting to them as the work product that we're asking them for input on?
As far as the community engagement strategy, we had a few points that we wanted to talk about. I'm not sure that we would start with the interim plan, but we would, to Dr. Mentor's point, also talk about the implications for folks. We would think about continuing to ask about educational needs and concerns, and thinking about resource allocation, and just asking, again, what does this look like? So if we were to, because the interim plan talks about moving to 2 or fewer districts. So basically that's what we're bringing to the community. when we move to 2 or fewer districts in the city of Wilmington, how will that affect your day-to-day experiences? How will that impact what's happening to you? Is that the change you're looking for? When that change happens, what are you expecting? Again, thinking about, that's what this group is asking. When we move to 2 or fewer districts, how is that going to change what happens to you educationally?
Stephanie, this is Jim Simmons. If I could piggyback, I think that that's a loaded question, right? Like, as you were speaking, a couple examples popped into my mind. I don't know that they can answer that question or be able to. I don't think we can answer it or they can answer it. Now, here's a couple examples. Because I'm most familiar with Brandywine, in Brandywine, instead of neighborhood schools, with the exception of Harlan, they have divided their poverty amongst 3 or 4 of their elementary schools, and they don't use the Neighborhood Schools Act per se. You know, they separate all our neighborhoods, go in the different directions. Once a decision is made, regardless of the decision, they've now got to relook at that. And I don't think that they can answer that question until they know. Maybe a better example is students who go to Warner come from Hilltop. Well, if the decision is made that Bayard becomes a part of Red Clay, those families from Hilltop will probably go to Bayard instead. And I think they don't know that would be more logical around the Neighborhood Schools Act. There's so much to unpack. To someone's point earlier, that the educators can't answer. I don't know how families are going to be able to give us feedback around this. So I think we got to be very careful with our questions, because it takes us down a rabbit hole that we can't answer.
So then, to your point, what other questions should we be asking the community?
Yeah, I think the biggest question, I think it was Mr. Rhodes who said, and if it's doctor, I apologize, was that we've got to make sure they know even what it is. There's so many people who don't even know what this is, right? They don't know what it is. They don't know why we're doing it. So I think we will be able to get feedback just by presenting what's going on and making sure there's a clear understanding of what is potentially going to happen. I'm not sure everyone knows that. I think people have heard about it at some level, but what's the level that we want them to know, the clear speaking points that we want them to know about? I think we've got to be prepared to answer questions, but I think we also got to be prepared to present to them so that they are informed and they can ask informed questions versus questions like, I get questions every day about, are they getting rid of the Christina school district? Well, that's never been discussed in Redding. So I just think we've got to be very clear in presenting first, and then the questions will come. If we go in looking for certain answers, I don't know that we'll get those, because there's so much ambiguity around what folks know. Just my opinion.
No, that's fine. So what I'm hearing from you is that we need to go back and start basically from the beginning of, and someone already said this too, but providing an understanding of a clear understanding of the plan. Again, to Mr. Rhodes, Dr. Rhodes, I'm sorry, to the point about why we're doing this, the importance of these efforts, how it's going to improve education in the city of Wilmington. That's what the plan is for, right? To think about the idea of 2 or fewer districts and what that looks like. So I think we need to kind of boil that down, so that the folks in the audience can actually understand what it is this plan is supposed to achieve. But then I don't know if after we present that idea, do we have specific questions to collect feedback from them? Or do we allow the conversation to kind of just organically build after we present the plan in clearer words and, diagrams that they can understand, maybe using the maps to talk about the different suggested redistricting efforts? to think about, like you said, you know, if this happens, then my students will go to this school, or if this happens, then my students will go to this school. So I guess I'm really asking this group to think about, you know, if we go from the baseline of many people are confused or still don't understand what's happening. So we start with that, we lay the foundation of what it is we're doing and then go from there. But are there any other things that we definitely need as the community engagement group to be asking the community about? And this might be a question for a later time after we think about going back and simplifying what's actually happening so people can understand it, but
Stephanie, this is Matt Den. I was mostly here to listen, but what folks have already said is very helpful in terms of what the consortium itself needs to do, I think, before this subcommittee can reasonably be expected to go out and talk to the community, which is to be at least somewhat more precise about what exact options it's looking at, and then with respect to them, that the ones that aren't particularly well defined yet, like the metropolitan Wilmington option, to to be more specific about exactly what that is, because it's I think it was, I don't remember if it was Superintendent Menzer or someone said that people who aren't following this day to day can't really be expected to sort of jump into the middle of it and constructively contribute in kind of an abstract way. So it's on us both to explain the why and also to be more to narrow down the list of options and be more precise about the ones that are remaining.
thank you. Let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk about the most effective ways to engage communities. So for this group, we know that we've been talking about town halls, but what are we missing by just holding town halls? How else can we reach the community the communities, excuse me, that are going to be impacted? What types of meetings or events can we hold to make sure that we're getting a broad swath of feedback from various folks across the city? So I'm just looking for ideas about the effective ways to engage with communities and to present this information and to collect information from them as well.
Stephanie, I was gonna
Yes.
add, Jennifer Tompkins from the Metropolitan Wilmington Urban League had written in the chat that working with trusted messengers is key. Working with existing community partners who have a large following is a way to get information to the community.
Okay.
And Jennifer, I don't know if you wanted to come off mute and expand more, but I think that was a great point as well.
I would also add taking advantage of social media in multiple ways beforehand, so that we're communicating that way. I don't know if there is a budget for this, but also, I think back to when we were doing the WLC, placing them on the YouTube channel, recordings on their YouTube channel or Facebook Live or whatever the case may be, so that folks who can't get there in person still have the ability to either watch as it's live streamed or be able to watch it at a later time because their schedule may not fit.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with Jennifer. If you have organizations that have a large CRM, start to partner with them to see if you can just get them email blast out, understanding that we're not going to share their information, but let them know what's coming, what it's about, and maybe help preempt the why. If you start to put the, common message out, the point of the churches who have large followings, get that out in their weekly bulletins to let them know. Oftentimes, those folks are connected either politically in the education realm or otherwise, and just using the resources that are already there, that have the contacts outside of going door to door. A lot of these individuals that live in these communities belong to organizations or churches, and that's an easy way to get a hold of them. So definitely have to use our resources.
Thank you.
If I can add what Ray just said, that is the way when I was doing the outreach for the affordable care. I just went up and down the state, and the first stop I made was in the churches. That's where I had a captive audience. And the good thing about working with the churches is that the members will go out into the community and they would spread the message for maybe the people who don't attend. The other thing I wanted to add is we need to use our smaller media sources. Not everybody subscribes to the News Journal or uses that for their information. As an example, we definitely don't want to leave out the Hispanic community. So, focusing on getting everyone to the table. We have in Spanish language, we have a radio station. We can also use some of our radio programs. You see a lot of influencers in our community that have YouTube channels that they utilize to communicate with people, either via social media or directly through YouTube. So using traditional and non-traditional media to get the word out. We have Hispanic newspapers. We have some of the smaller print media in communities. So I would definitely be reaching out to those entities. And a lot of this can be done as a public service announcement. So it's not like we have to pay to do that. I don't believe we have the resources to go door to door, but civic associations, when people show up from those neighborhoods, especially the ones that we're targeting, they would, I see here in Harlan, a lot of times they'll try to go out, they'll try to put, a flyer in the door to let us know that a meeting's coming up, or they'll have a board sign out there. So these are other ways that we can use non-traditional resources. And as a city council member, I would definitely offer the resources of our public station WITN to get the word out. And we should work with cable media, DETV, and others, because a lot of times that is where some of our community members are getting their news from.
If I could jump in right where everyone has been, I think that we definitely are hitting the vein of where people are. I'd caution us, however, with from only focusing on the places we perceive have large followings. Because if we only go to those places, we're still going to miss most of the people that we're trying to reach. And so rather than the organizations or churches that we would perceive to be the largest, we need to get to as many as we possibly can, houses of faith of whatever religion it may be, so that we're getting to as many people as possible. And for probably a broader swath of the community than we might recognize, social media actually is where they're getting a lot of their information. So whether it is having pages for the consortium on social media where you can put an infographic, which is giving them the most pertinent information in easily digestible tidbits, or reels, because now everyone is getting their information in 1 minute to 90-second bits of information. How much information can you get out to them in that way? And then invite them in some other way to get back to you the feedback that they desire. And a lot of people will do that in comments. I think being non-traditional in the way we think about getting this information out will actually probably get more of it to more of the community than a town hall where we may have 200 people, but we will have 75 of those who will go to every town hall. So we're really not getting as many people as we actually think if we add all of the numbers up.
I would also like to add the group or the subgroup that this affects the most are students. We need to get student involvement, whether as ambassadors out on the streets with us, public allies, but oftentimes it's said that their voices are not heard. We need to get them involved because it affects them probably more than anybody else. I'm not going to say I'm not surprised that, or I'm surprised that there's not one on this committee, but we need to start inviting them to come to these meetings and get involved at the grassroots level, so that hopefully it'll stay with them. And as they, get through school and off to college or in the work world, they'll remember this work and continue to give back. So I think we need to engage some students in some capacity.
We did talk with AIR about their focus groups and talked to them about adding middle school students. They had talked about just kind of focusing on high school students. So if we can get the names of the students that maybe they're interviewing it to start with like a small group and then build from there a coalition of students, that would be a great idea. Does anyone have any other ideas about how to make sure, what are the best ways we can make sure that we're not missing groups of people? We have a lot of good ideas about social media and email, going to the places where people are. I know that we also talked about going to different places in actual neighborhoods like barbershops and salons and putting out posters and QR codes for it there, but I just want to make sure that we're, again, trying to reach as many people as possible. So someone did just talk about the idea that town halls may not be the most effective way to reach folks. So what are other things that we haven't talked about yet that we could do to make sure we're supplementing the town hall experience?
Yeah, I think one of the most direct ways, of course, as I mentioned earlier, is the schools that are in the various districts. They have databases that have all the information as far as email address, contacts, whether it's a robo-text or whatever. So partnering with the various schools to be able to share their CRMs, you're going to get, I would say, probably 75, 80% at least information in front of them. But getting them out to the town hall is going to be a different task altogether. But at least getting to the schools to be able to get some general information out to the families. And, you know, you might get a number of people to come out. For instance, at the committee meeting or the meeting we had here at Eastside, we had a couple of grandparents that were there, a couple of parents who came out just to get some information on why they were there. They talked about how important it was to them. So, but if we can get the databases, the CRMs of all those schools that are affected or will be affected by this, that I think that would, you know, at least be able to give us some general information to get in front of them.
Dr. Mentor, I don't want to put you on the spot, but can I ask you a question?
Oh, he had to
Did he
go
have to
to a
Okay.
parent group meeting, yeah.
Okay, so then I will ask, is Mr. Brumall here and representing the Brandywine School District?
He's here representing Red Clay. for
Red Clay, I'm
Superintendent
sorry,
Green,
I am so
and
sorry.
then Dr. O'Hanlon is here for Superintendent
Perfect, then I
Lawson
want both of them.
for Brandywine.
So for representatives of the Red Clay School District and the Brandywine School District, would it be possible for this group to have time to speak at meetings that you're already holding at schools? Or at school board meetings to try to get the community who's there at the beginning of the meeting to just hear this information?
Yes, I know in Red Clay, we've had groups present to our school board at our public meetings in the past.
Okay.
I would also share that our youth sports organizations are a great way to connect with families in the community. Whether it's showing up at the 87er Stadium with a booth and being able to share information there, or the various little leagues and soccer clubs that are around town.
Thank you. And I think that kind of goes to, again, meeting people where they are and catching people where they are to try to get as many people as possible.
And Stephanie, to that
Yes.
point, I know Senator Lockman has also reached out and said that, you know, our group can help provide written updates to each of the boards in each of the affected districts,
Okay.
just so they're aware of, you know, regular updates and progress and keeping them informed and engaged.
Okay.
So that's an added part of the process that we can help support. And that would probably come from the Redding leadership team to share with those groups.
Thank you.
If I could piggyback on the comment that was made with the sports activities, you know, we are in that season. And if we're trying to get the word out, depending how quickly we want to move forward with this, you know, we can go to the actual games where the leagues are. A lot of the parents hopefully do show up to their children's games. And a lot of the kids that are playing in the Wilmington area are from the area. We can at least give them the information, even if it doesn't pertain to them. It doesn't hurt to share, and they can also, you know, encourage people to spread the word to any parents that they know. We know that some people are not paying attention. They may not be on on any of the resources that we just mentioned, but to leave no stone unturned. Each one asks one. That way you can always reach to a parent or the friends of children. Hey, did you know about this? We're going to the meeting, you know, you should come, have some input, you know, just to make sure that we don't leave any stone unturned, as was mentioned by former folks. Face it, we're not going to get everybody, but if we can get a good group of people to really give us that feedback, that's important. And document, of course, everything that we've done, so no one says that we didn't do enough to really get the word out, because it is important that we hear back from everyone. Thank you.
You want to move to public comment? Okay, thanks. Okay, so we're now in the portion of the meeting where we're gonna allow for public comment. We're gonna ask for public comment. We ask that you please limit your comment to 2 minutes per individual. State your name and organization if you represent one before giving your public comment. I'm gonna turn it over to those who are in charge of controlling public comment. Thank you.
So for any of the members of the public online, if you have any public comment, you can just come off mute and you'll have 2 minutes to share your comment. Thank you.
I don't see any folks who want to give public comment, so we can move on. So if we move to the next slide, I think we were going to use this part of the time. Councilwoman Cabrera is going to lead this part to talk a little bit about how we could plan to have a town hall in May of 2025. So on the screen, you can see that the purpose of the community town hall or town halls, because I would like to.
I'm sorry, I was muted.
Okay, good. Go ahead. You can take.
So sorry about, I did start talking, but I forgot I had muted myself. I was saying that most recently I attended some of the town hall meetings that the mayor hosted. The one at William Hicks Anderson, I was really surprised. It was excellent turnout. There was a lot of people. They had like 4 pages of people that signed in. So you figured anywhere from 50 to 60 people had shown up, which I think is pretty good on a Wednesday evening or Tuesday evening to have people out. So we can piggyback with some of what the mayor is currently doing. Obviously, this education is a very important issue to him, but this is one way that we can really get out there to the broader community and people are paying attention. We would, you know, help elevate those voices of the people that are most impacted in the planning process, as we just discussed. We want to continue to do the outreach and communication, messaging around, you know, supporting a strong Wilmington community, and most importantly, that equitable access to education that our children need. You know, we have to have excellence in our Wilmington schools. The engagement process, explain to the community what we're doing, so they're very clear where we are in the process, the potential options, open it up for discussions, and of course, recruit more people to participate and to get the word out. The things that we need to consider as we're planning this is that we make sure that we have a suburban voices in the process as well, especially if we're expanding outside of the city limits for some of the of what we discussed, whether this would be metropolitan, whether it includes Brandywine, understanding that these folks live outside of the city of Wilmington. We should have an independent outside facilitator for the town halls and make sure that we have allies and champions in the room to answer questions, to be there and to really just talk about the work that we're doing. Very important that we get feedback, have a public survey at these town halls for attendees to fill out at the event. So this is what we would do as we're going forward. We want the community town halls to incorporate all of this. Is there another slide? Okay, so as we, as we're looking for answers, we ask these questions. What are the goals and the objectives for these town halls? So what is the true outcome that we want so we can plan around that? And what ways can we educate the community and inform them about the potential redistricting options so that they can also provide input and be clear? And how can we most effectively communicate our community engagement work to impacted communities? We had a thoughtful discussion around this, how to get the word out to the community, what is the best way to reach most people and broaden that base of engagement. We've already discussed this. And what is it possible to plan before the meeting of the May full body meeting? So if anybody has input on any of these ideas, I know we discussed a lot of this already in detail, but any other added comments?
I think the most important thing to remember is that there's a Redding meeting scheduled for May 27th. So then thinking about between now and May 27th, what is possible for this group to do to get out into the community, to give them the information that we have, to collect information back from the community that we can take to that May 27th meeting.
If anybody has any suggestions, please feel free to jump in. And we want to make sure, for the next steps that we review the community engagement strategy and town hall planning worksheet. We need to schedule the town halls in the next subcommittee meeting in May. We want to take a look at any dates right now. We can do that. Reminder, as was just mentioned, the next full body meeting. And then the retreat, we still don't have a date, but that'll be June 2025 in terms of next steps. Any more comments or feedback on any of this? Okay, not hearing any. Any last comments, anyone?
Hi,
Thank you.
Maria. Oh, hi, Maria. This is Haley. I'm not technically a member, so sorry.
Okay.
But with UD's IPA, with working with Elena, I was just wondering, sort of based on conversation today, I guess I would be interested in knowing how we can add a little bit more clarity to the town halls to really make them effective. Because I was sort of hearing that people need more specific information around maybe definitions for options or maps that can show them maybe what a potential redistricting option could look like. So if we're going to have the town halls before the May 27th consortium meeting, maybe we can discuss as a group, how are we making those town halls effective to Stephanie's point, to bring back information to that full body meeting at the end of May. Let me know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand your question. I will tell you the truth. When I'm looking at this in terms of getting the word out, I don't foresee that we're possibly going to be able to have as many town halls as we would like to really get that true input. If we have one prior to our meeting, I think, and really to get the word out, and get people engaged, because we talked about different locations, not just one location, to really engage the community. I foresee that these town halls are going to be ongoing, but I do get your question that we don't have those details yet because we are still kind of looking to see how those districts, how that would look, what options. There was no final clarity on the 9 options. We know that there was 4 that were the ones that stood out the most that people voted for. Any feedback on that, Elena or Stephanie, that you want to jump in terms of her question?
No, I'm still kind of, looking to the subcommittee to kind of talk about if we cannot do town halls in the way that they're normally held, what is something we could do in its place? How do we get this information from our communities. If town hall is not gonna be possible, and I'm not saying that it's not, but if we can't do a town hall in the way that it's normally held. And I know that we have a list of lots of ways to reach out to people, but how do we get people to reach back to us? Besides, leaving, like someone said, comments in social media, QR codes. We had also talked, us co-chairs about, providing surveys. So maybe we can get surveys out to the district using email and text blasts. From the school districts to talk to, families and caregivers. But I'm kind of stuck, like, how do we get what we need before the 27th? So that's really why I'm looking to the subcommittee. What are ways that we could make sure we're getting feedback? In a timely fashion, because I know spring break happens next week, or actually this Friday. So that gives us even less. Maybe that's good. Maybe people will be paying attention to social media more. I don't know.
We could always start with the social media because that's the easiest and painless way to do it. But will we reach everyone? I think as Dr. Griffin said, that's where people are right now. They are on social media. I'm an exception because it's just a time thief that I have not been on there recently, but there are a lot of people on there. So that's one aspect. I mean, do we have enough time to put flyers together to, get them, the religious leaders? I know that there's certain groups where you have all the religious leaders. They have access to them. I know the city has a list as well that we can ask them, but they may have questions. They may want to know what is it that you're trying to achieve and what kind of feedback are we going to get if it's not a face-to-face, because we can't have all these multiple meetings before the 25th. Social media, definitely one way to do it. I would definitely say use our televisions, use our cable network, DETV, WITN. I personally would go to the Spanish language, radio stations and newspaper to see if we have time to get something in there, give people a phone number, a link that they can open up and see if they could respond. Maybe have some questions on there, like a survey to see what would, what's on the mind of the parents, get their feedback. Those are my suggestions. We'd love to hear from the rest of you, though, on what you think would be the most prudent way to do it. There are some comments that were made in the chat. Go to where the schools already are, churches, schools, community centers. We didn't talk about that. The teen warehouse, that's another place where a lot of the students hang out. We might want to get feedback from them, not just the parents as well.
Hello, this is Jen Tompkins from the Urban League. I agree with everything that you're saying, Councilwoman, but I also think that have we considered maybe an influencer that could, whether we hire or partner with, in order to really get the word out there. I know for a fact with the Urban League, when we happened to stumble across an influencer who shared our housing flyers, we got an overwhelming response of folks who were contacting the Urban League. So I think this is also a great way too to get people to pack out the room through, hiring or engaging with an influencer who could really spread the word.
Excellent idea. Thank you.
And I did write that down, but do we know who a good influencer would be?
I will tell you, I can probably get a short list together right off the top of my head. No, but I'm pretty sure my program managers can give me a whole list and I can definitely get it over to the group.
Thank you. That would be very
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Good idea.
One that comes to mind immediately is Blake Saunders. Blake gets called on to do, I would say, 6 or 7 events a month, whether it's down Dell State. Now he's in Jersey and New York, so he has a large following. Malcolm and Nudie and Steve over at Future First Gaming. They are been doing a lot in that realm. So Jennifer, if you don't have them on your list, I would put those 2 names down. Future First Gaming, Malcolm Coley.
Malcolm, right? Malcolm Coley. Yes,
Yep.
That's a good one.
Nudie Felton, and of course Blake Saunders.
Is there a way that you could put the Future First Gaming folks' names in the chat for us, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
How about Najee? She was someone people were paying attention to. She was on national television. She's a singer, but she has a follower, Rich Raw.
Mhm.
See, we can do a lot when we put our brains together here.
If you could put those names in the chat, that'd be really helpful. I appreciate it.
So I just wanted to kind of bring it back to big picture. I think these are good ideas in terms of thinking about like best to get the information out to the community. But I guess in the interim, coming to terms with defining, like we said, further defining what those potential redistricting options are. And I think as an avenue through these community town halls, getting input on, what are the value and what are values and criteria or things that are important to, parents or our community members, and considering what these redistricting planning options could potentially entail, and being able to put forth and bring some of that insight into the criteria discussion or ideas that the full consortium will consider, in addition to the planning work that the subcommittee is doing. So that's more like a process related focus, but I know that we were focusing on like the ways of engagement, but I think in terms of like big picture thinking through how we can best gather the information and what we're sharing with the community, and that the best way that could be is getting their input on those values and that criteria, and being able to help inform that, in addition to the work that the planning work that the other subcommittees are doing, fiscal impacts and operational, getting that input. And of course, we'll have updated information from AAR in terms of the landscape analysis as well, to help further inform some of these decisions that the subcommittees are going to be focusing on, and ultimately the full consortium as well. So I know Councilwoman Cabrera had recapped the next steps. Was there any, additional feedback or comments, as we close out this discussion for the meeting today? We just want to thank everyone for your engagement and your input. And I'd open up to you, Stephanie, as well.
Oh, no, thank you. I absolutely would, again, just say the same thing that you just said. Thank you very much. If anyone has any questions around the next steps, what we need to be working on, we'll be reaching back out to you as we try to schedule our town halls, as we go back through the notes and think about the engagement strategy and try to put that in place, and ask you to help us push this information out, to be a part of this town hall meetings and the outreach that we're going to be doing, to try to get as much information from the public as we possibly can. Keeping these dates in mind, the Redding full body meeting is May 27th, and then we're having a subcommittee retreat sometime in June. We don't have the date for that yet, but those are our next steps. As always, if you have any additional questions, Elena Robinson, whose email is on the slide you see in front of you, is the person you should reach out to. If no one else has any further comments,
I'm gonna make a quick comment. If you think of any, because I know we just kind of threw this at you real quick, but as you're thinking about any other influencers, and that could include pastors, because there's some pastors out there that have a very strong following, please reach out to us, send it to, Elena, Stephanie, myself, so that we can start reaching out to these people. So, we gave you a lot to think about in this meeting. But as you get ideas before we have our next meeting, please reach out to us, because we really need all of you as our partners as we move forward. Thank you. In closing, thank you for attending the meeting, but please follow up with any further ideas that you have that you may not have come to you while we were in the meeting. Thank you. Thank you to my co-chair as well, and Elena and the staff.
All right, have a good night. Thank you.
Do we need a motion to adjourn? Have a good night, everyone, and happy Easter for those who celebrate.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.